Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're digging into some really interesting new work in AI vision.
Yeah, this one's about getting AI to understand images and video at a much, much finer level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're looking at DAM, that's D-A-M, a new way to do detailed, localized captioning for images and videos. And the key insight, really, for a quick summary up front, it uses something called a focal prompt.
Right.
This combines, the whole image view with a specific masked-off region you care about.
So it gets both the big picture and the close-up.
Precisely. It feeds both into a special vision system and a large language model.
And the result is these incredibly detailed descriptions for specific spots in pictures or video clips.
Yeah, and apparently it's beating the previous state-of-the-art in zero-shot tests, which is pretty impressive.
Definitely. And they also came up with a clever data generation pipeline, DLC-SDP.
Yes. Leveraging LLMs to make more training data, these image, mask, description triplets, and get captions at different detail levels.
So yeah, lots to unpack there.
Absolutely. So for anyone tracking AI perception, this is a big deal. The challenge is getting AI to describe specific parts accurately with nuance.
It really is. It's been a tough nut to crack. This paper tackles it head on.
And the potential impact. I mean, think robotics, autonomous driving, even media editing.
Oh, huge implications. It's about understanding details, context, even with tricky stuff like motion blur or things being blocked.
Okay, so before we dive fully into DAM itself, maybe set the stage. Why did we need this? What was wrong with older methods?
Well, the paper highlights a couple of main issues. First, older approaches often kind of lose the fine details when they first process the whole image.
Like looking at the whole beach and missing the specific shell you wanted?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The small stuff gets washed out in the big picture view.
Okay. And the second thing?
The second issue is context. When models did focus on a small region, they sometimes didn't have enough info about what was around it.
Ah, so they see the tree but not the forest it's in?
Exactly. That leads to descriptions that might be technically okay for the region, but miss the mark contextually.
Gotcha. I remember seeing that cucumber example in the paper where old models got it totally wrong.
Yeah, that one really shows the problem.
Yeah.
Lack of broader context made them misinterpret it completely.
So how does DAM fix this? What's the secret sauce in its architecture?
Well, it really boils down to that dual stream idea. The focal prompt and the localized vision backbone working together. Figure 3 in the paper lays it out.
Right. Let's start with the focal prompt then. Sounds central.
It totally is. It's designed to give the model that wide view and the detailed close-up simultaneously while knowing exactly what it's focusing on.
How does it manage that?
It takes two inputs side by side. First, the whole image, but with a mask showing the specific area of interest.
Okay.
Second, a cropped, zoomed-in version of that specific area, also with its mask.
Ah, I see. So full scene context plus a detailed look at the target. That feels more like how we might look at something.
Right. It does feel more intuitive, yeah. And for that zoomed-in crop, they don't just use the mask's bounding box.
Oh, what do they do?
They expand it, using that expand box function they mentioned. Equation 2.
The expand box, okay.
Yeah, they give an example where setting a parameter, alpha to 3, can make the crop area up to 9 times bigger than the original box.
Wow, 9 times. Why so big?
To pull in more of the immediate surroundings, that local context, but it's capped by the image edges, of course.
Right. Makes sense.
And they also have a minimum size rule. If the expanded box gets smaller than 48 pixels wide or tall, they just make it 48.
To make sure there's always enough visual information, even in the zoom.
Exactly. You need enough pixels for the model to actually see features.
Okay, so we have these two views, the full image with the mask, the expanded crop with the mask. What happens next? How does the localized vision backbone process them?
So this is where it starts merging the what with the where. They mention it's a bit like vision transformers using patch embeddings.
Okay, breaking the image into pieces.
Sort of. Both the full image and the focal crop get processed. They have an image patch embedding layer, EI, for the picture parts, and a new mask patch embedding layer, EM, just for the mask information.
A separate layer just for the mask. Interesting.
Yeah. These embeddings, along with positional info, go into a global vision encoder, FG. That processes the full image and its mask to get these global features, called Z.
So Z is like the model's overall understanding of the scene, guided by the mask focus.
That's a good way to put it. Then, for the specific region.
Right, the zoomed in part.
The focal crop and its mask go through a similar embedding step using EI and EM.
Okay.
But then these embeddings, along with the global feature Z, are fed into a regional vision encoder, FR.
Ah, so the regional part uses the global understanding as context.
Precisely. Equation 5 shows this. It produces the final fuse features, Z, which contain both detailed local info and broad context.
That fusion seems critical.
It is. And a neat trick. That mask embedding layer, EM, starts out outputting just zeros.
Zeros? Why?
So initially, the model relies only on the visual parts. It learns how to use the mask info during fine-tuning. Helps with training stability, probably.
Clever.
They also mention using gated cross-attention in that regional encoder.
What does that do?
It likely lets the regional part pay selective attention to the most relevant bits of the global context spatial, really refining its focus.
Okay, that architecture sounds pretty solid. But the paper also really pushes this data expansion thing. DLC-SDP. Why was that so important?
Right, the Data-Efficient Language Condition Semantic Detail Prediction Pipeline, DLC-SDP. It's basically their way to make tons more training data.
How does it work? Is it fully automatic?
It's semi-supervised, so partly automated. They use it to generate lots of these image, mask, description combinations.
Ah, because getting humans to make that kind of detailed data is expensive and slow, right?
Exactly. Good localized captioning data is scarce. This lets them use bigger, maybe less perfectly labeled data sets to create more training examples automatically.
And you mentioned LLMs are involved here too.
Yes, the large language model plays a key part. After generating detailed descriptions for this new data, they use the LLM to summarize those long descriptions into shorter versions, like single phrases or sentences.
Oh, cool. So the model learns to describe things at different levels of detail.
Exactly. Multi-Granular Captioning. From just a phrase up to a whole narrative makes the model way more flexible.
And did this data expansion actually help performance?
Hugely. Check Table 9 in the paper if you get a chance. They show clear gains as they add more data, especially from diverse sources like the LVIS dataset.
Right.
And even better, they applied this semi-supervised learning to just 10% of the huge SA1B dataset, which isn't even annotated for this task, and got another performance boost.
Wow. So leveraging massive, even weakly labeled data really paid off.
It really demonstrates the power of scale and smart data generation.
Okay, so with this cool architecture and all this extra data, how well does DAM actually perform? What did the zero-shot tests show?
They were pretty impressive. On the Flick 30K entities benchmark, which is about phrase-level descriptions, DAM got an average relative improvement of 12.3% over the previous best methods. That's shown in Table 3.
12.3% in zero shot. That's a really solid jump in this field.
It is. It means the model generalizes well to describe regions in data sets it wasn't specifically trained on.
And what about longer, more detailed captions, not just short phrases?
Yeah, while Table 3 focuses on those phrase metrics like cider and spice, the qualitative examples show it handles longer descriptions really well.
Like the cucumber again.
Exactly like the cucumber. Where older models were confused or hallucinated, DAM gave this detailed, accurate description, color, texture, seeds.
A totally different level of understanding.
Right. It's not just slightly better scores, it's capturing much richer visual detail.
The paper also showed it working on multi-view datasets, right? Like seeing a car from different angles.
Yes. Figure 6 has that example using the C3DV2 dataset.
How does it handle that?
It seems to integrate information across the different views. So if you ask it to describe a part of the car, it uses info from multiple frames to give a more complete picture, even as the view changes.
That's crucial for anything operating in the real world. Things rarely stay still from one perfect angle.
Definitely. And it's not just detailed, it's also flexible in how much detail.
Ah, the multi-granular thing again?
Yep. Figure 7 shows this with a chair. Ask for a brief description of a part, you get one. Ask for super detailed.
And it gives you more like upholstery leg style.
Exactly. Adapts to what you need.
Now, you mentioned masks earlier. The paper makes a point about using masks instead of just bounding boxes in their data pipeline. Why the preference for masks?
Good question. They discuss this in Appendix C and Figure 8 too. The issue with bounding boxes is, well, they're boxes.
Meaning?
Meaning they often grab extra stuff, bits of background, maybe edges of other objects nearby. It adds noise.
Ah, so the box isn't precisely outlining just the thing you care about.
Right. Masks are much more precise. They outline the exact shape. They use an example with building windows. A box might include wall sections, but a mask gets just the window frame and glass.
So masks give a cleaner signal for training, less ambiguity.
Exactly. That's why they focused on using segmentation datasets with high-quality manual masks to generate their initial high-quality triplets for the DLC pipeline.
Makes total sense. Okay. Shifting gears slightly, what about video? How did DAM handle describing things in video clips? They tested on Video Refurbbench.
You did. And they used GPT-4o, interestingly, to help evaluate the quality, including checking for hallucinations.
How did that go?
Mostly, well, but Figure 8.3 highlights a fascinating evaluation challenge.
Oh.
In one case, DAM accurately describes someone's gestures and expressions in a video, stuff that was really happening.
Okay, so what's the problem?
The problem was those details weren't in the ground truth caption used for comparison.
Ah, so GPT-4o thought DAM was making stuff up, hallucinating, even though it was correct.
Exactly. It got penalized because the reference caption wasn't detailed enough.
Wow. That really shows how evaluation methods might need to catch up if models are getting this good at seeing details.
It's a really important point. The model might be seeing more than the benchmark expects.
Were there other cool examples showing its video capabilities? The appendix figures?
Oh yeah, Figures 8.8 and 8.9 have some great ones.
Oh yeah.
It handled describing tiny objects, even with lots of motion, like a dancing kid. It could identify stationary things, like a sculpture, even when the camera was moving around it.
That's tricky.
Yeah. And it was good with occlusions, objects partly hidden, or the view briefly blocked, like an elephant behind some leaves, or describing a cat's movement.
So pretty robust to real-world video messiness.
Seems like it, yeah. These examples really show its versatility.
And for the technical folks listening, any quick notes on the training setup, models used,
Yeah.
Ablation Studies?
Sure. Appendix H2 has the details. They built on Vilal 1.5 models, used the Siglip vision encoder, fine-tuned a 3B parameter models for image only, and a larger 8B model for joint image video training.
And they mixed in other data to avoid forgetting.
Right. They used a mix-in strategy with shared GPT data to prevent catastrophic forgetting. Standard practice, but important.
And Ablation Studies. Did they test why DAM works?
Yep, Section E covers those. They compared different architectures with the same data to isolate DAM's design benefits. And they compared image-only training versus joint image video training in Table 8.3. Interestingly, joint training helped slightly, even for image captioning.
But they used the image-only model for most main results.
Yeah, likely for simplicity or direct comparison with other image-only methods.
Okay, so wrapping up, DAM really feels like a proper step forward.
I think so. That focal prompt idea, combined with the smart data pipeline, DLC-SDP, it tackles known problems effectively.
And the results speak for themselves, better scores, much richer descriptions.
Definitely more accurate, detailed, nuanced understanding of specific visual regions.
So here's the final thought for you listening, especially if you're building AI systems. What does this enable? Seriously, think about it. Robots that can see and interact with objects with much finer control because they understand the details?
Yeah, or self-driving cars with a far richer perception of complex scenes.
Safer, more reliable navigation. Or even just radically better tools for artists and video editors to manipulate content at a super granular level.
The potential is huge. This level of localized understanding could unlock a lot across many fields.
It really feels like it opens up new possibilities for how AI sees and interacts with our world.
Absolutely. Exciting stuff.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we unpack the DAM paper. Hopefully this gave you some solid insights into where localized visual understanding is heading.